Okay, welcome back to Say That, a Wingstop podcast. This is a podcast for Wingstop, by Wingstop, and I'm your host, Donnie Upshaw. And today we have, we're honoring Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and I'm excited to welcome Anh Bui to the podcast. Welcome, Anh.
Thanks, Donnie.
We're going to get into all the things around AAPI, and excited to have Anh come on and share her story. Anh, it's great to have you here. To kick things off, I'd love to hear just a little bit about what you did before Wingstop, what you do today at Wingstop, and then, of course, you got to let us know your favorite flavor.
Of course. So currently at Wingstop, I'm an HR business partner. I support a legal and tech team, rolling up to the HR department. And before this, I worked at Chewy, also in an HR business partner role. And then before that, for a company called Lumen Technologies.
Okay.
So I've been moving around a lot. My family grew up in Michigan, born in Vietnam, grew up in Michigan. Then I moved to Louisiana for about 3.5 years. Denver, Colorado for 2, Fort Lauderdale, Florida for another 2, and then here in Dallas, Texas.
Okay, and your Wingstop favorite flavor is?
Ironically, Louisiana rub.
Okay, that's the New Orleans
Yep.
a couple of years you spent there. That's cool. So what attracted you to Wingstop?
So a recruiter reached out to me, and it's funny because after I accepted the offer from Wingstop, my husband's like, "Hey, do you remember when we moved from Florida?" Driving into Dallas, we saw the Wingstop headquarters, and he said, "Wouldn't it be funny if you started working there?" And I don't remember that conversation, which is funny because I'm the one that usually has the good memory.
Yeah.
But yeah, when they reached out to me, I've obviously been a customer of Wingstop, big fan of the brand. And then when I came into the offices, it just really blew me away. With, again, it's just this very strong brand name. And I liked what I was hearing, what you guys are building here.
Yeah, that's great. Well, welcome to the team. And you've been at Wingstop now
10 months?
Almost a year. I was going to say, it feels like a year. So yeah, 10 months. That's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about just your upbringing. You moved around a lot. So if you can walk us through what drove your family to move around, what were some of the lessons that you've learned? What were some of the things that were important to you as you grew up that you still hold today? Would love to hear a little bit about your story growing up.
Yeah, sure. So like I mentioned, I was born in Vietnam, and we immigrated over here when I was around 3 or 4 years old. Funny thing is that we were actually supposed to head to California and build a life there. And somehow we actually got relocated to Michigan. I think there was a really heavy population in California at that point. This is like late 1990s. So Michigan and California are very, very different, right? But I did my undergrad there. I did my master's in HR there at Michigan State University. So I really grew up there. And then, but at some point, I just knew that I wasn't going to live my life out in Michigan. I was going to move around a lot. And HR has really taken me in that direction with my career. So that's why I move around so much. And I think that's something that is really resonates with me is that I really like traveling. And I obviously like moving around. I move around probably apartment to apartment every year and a half.
Oh, so you enjoy moving?
I do.
The packing too?
I usually hire somebody.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
But the good thing about packing is that you're not a pack rat. Because you're like, if you don't touch that for a while, then you probably don't need it in the next place. But the thing about that is, like, my parents are kind of the very much opposite of me. They're not big adventure people. They don't like to go to different places. So I studied abroad when I was in college in China for 6 months. And it was a very structured program, right? Like, it was about learning, it was about the language, it was about immersion, it was about having fun, discovering yourself. When you immigrate over, it's not about fun. It's about survival, right? So I remember specifically, like, they gave my parents like an envelope of cash and like a box of canned goods, vegetables that sometimes like we didn't really eat in Vietnam, right? And so in knowing how much they're against or very opposed to new things, how much courage they had to take to like, go to another country. Because like today, you know, I would say like, hey, if there was an international HR opportunity, I'd be all over it, right? But it wasn't really like that. It wasn't excitement for them. I think there was hope for the future. But I think they were thinking back now, they were probably very nervous, very scared. So that really resonates with me now that, you know, I don't take travel for granted. I don't take the confidence that I have for granted. But yeah, I've learned that, hey, if my parents can figure out immigration life, I can figure out HR problems.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. The scale is much bigger for your parents at that time. I imagine they had to be, to your point, they were nervous and anxious about it, but very courageous in order to do something like that. What has that meant to you and your family for them to make that type of decision?
So my sister's 10 years older than I am. And ever since she was 13, she knew she wanted to be a doctor, which she is today. And
That's
so
awesome.
that now and again, I think about it. So she's 13, she starts middle school here.
Yeah.
And then about 4 years later, she has to apply for college. And now again, when you're older, you grow up and you appreciate things. Like, do I have the confidence to say that in 4 years I could learn a language well enough to go to a collegiate level?
Yeah.
I don't know, right? So that means a lot to us that her dreams are able to come true.
Sure.
And she's really lived that life out and, made my parents very proud of that.
Yeah. Shout out, sis.
Yeah. So there's that side. And then for me, I don't really think my parents really understand like the work I do in HR. It's not really a popular career expansion. So I just tell them I do business things, right?
Which you do.
Yeah, I sure do. Business partner. That's the business partner part.
Right,
HR VP.
100%.
And so that for me sometimes is a culture difference, but they know that I get to work in an office in, a skyscraper building. And I think that is also part of the American dream for them.
Sure. That's great. That's awesome. Well, what does AAPI Heritage Month mean to you and your family?
Yeah. It just means like how much we have really progressed, right? That we, like even obviously as an Asian American, there are other parts of being an Asian American that I'm not familiar with, right? So it's about learning, it's about growth, it's about representation.
Yeah.
So I would tell my friends this story and they would laugh at me, but when I was a kid, I'm thinking like 4th or 5th grade, for the longest time, Donnie, I thought I was Chinese because that's what they would talk about. Like China is the country, an Asian country that we talk about a lot, right?
Sure.
And as I was a little kid seeing different pictures, I would think like that's the people that look most like me.
Sure.
And your parents don't really sit you down, right? And you're like, hey, I'm like you're Vietnamese, and this is what it means, and this is the difference, right? And I think like today with again AAPI month and recognition and more education and how Wingstop showed up, it's really opened up doors and windows for people.
Yeah.
I think everything first starts with exposure, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like looking back at that little girl, like if I knew there were other Asian countries, I don't think I would mistake myself for Chinese for so long.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's great. Just the the reflection and the fact that I think today it sounds like you just want to continue to learn and put yourself in situations to continue to learn. I think that's what we all do, and that's one of the reasons why we celebrate these things at Wingstop is to educate and meet people where they are. Like those things are really important. Talk to me about is there a family tradition that sticks out to you? And that you're going to carry forward as you into the future. I know you're recently married as well. Congratulations.
Thank you,
as you carry forward with your family.
Unfortunately, no. So the big celebration in Vietnam is the New Year celebration, Lunar New Year, anywhere end of January, beginning of February, and we didn't really celebrate that growing up. And so it's it's a whole like 2-week celebration, like how Christmas is really big here in the U.S. And so we didn't really have a lot of traditions growing up, which I think is why I'm a little bit shocked that I ended up getting married in Vietnam. Because if you had asked me 10, 15 years ago, like I think I would go back to get married there, I probably would have said no. And also probably because I wasn't making any money 10, 15 years ago either, so to be able to do that. So I think it's in a lot of ways that we have come like really full circle on that. Though.
Yeah. What drove you to go back and actually tie the knot there?
So it was my husband's idea actually.
Shout out husband as well.
Yeah, shout out to him. So we had just moved here in July and then we got engaged in October, so 3 months after. And I'm not sure you're familiar, but in the U.S., if you want a venue or anything, you got to book it 12 to 18 months ahead, right?
Yeah.
And I really was panicked about what state, because I had to narrow down location first, right? Like I moved around a lot, he moved around a lot. So anywhere we've gone, 90% of people would have had to fly in.
Yeah.
And the year before, we had just gone to a friend's wedding in Rome, Italy. They live in Pennsylvania. And so I think we were a little bit inspired by that. And he said, hey, why don't we do it in Vietnam? It's very cost efficient. And the more I thought about it, I think it would have been such an adventure for everybody.
Sure.
And it would be in a country that my parents were really familiar with the language in and the food.
Yeah.
And I never thought that was really feasible, right? So that really clicked for me. And I think that I wouldn't say I intentionally did that, but being at my wedding and being back in the country that I was born in with my family and then my friends through different journeys of my life, it was like multiple worlds colliding for me.
Yeah.
It was very, very surreal for me.
A bit magical, I'd imagine.
It was. Yeah. It was also a little bit overwhelming because I think, like, you show up to a little bit differently to people in your life, right? They know you for a certain thing, or they know you at work, or you're a friend. So it was really interesting experience for me, for everybody to see all the different sides of me.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Any number one memory from the trip?
Wow, so many memories. So I wrote a lot of different scripts, right, to thank our friends and our family. And then in the middle of the moment, I decided to thank my parents in Vietnamese, right? But then I also realized that my Vietnamese is a little bit more clunky than I had thought, because my parents, we say like the same 10 things to each other, like, have you eaten yet? Like, how's work, etc.
Right.
So I said thank you, but it was super clunky. And I think a little bit of me is a little bit saddened that I don't have the vocabulary sometimes to really appreciate my parents for everything they've done for me because of that limitation, even though I am like fairly fluent. But I think it's like those sentimental words, right, that we don't have frequent usage of. So they roll off the tongue a little bit uncomfortably.
Sure. Well, you can practice.
That's true. Practice makes perfect.
That's right. Is there a favorite dish growing up, or even today, that makes you think about your heritage, that makes you think about home?
Mm-hmm. There
is something that comes to mind?
Yeah, there's this dish. It's called bánh bèo, and it's a labor of love. It's all these small little bowls, and you steam it, and then you have to make all the toppings from it. My mom would make those when we had ascended holidays or as my birthday or something. And then going back to Vietnam and having that, and even restaurants here in Dallas, one or two has that dish. And I remember when we first moved here, Donnie, I was just so surprised. There's actually a very large Vietnamese community here.
Yeah.
And that's a very like niche dish. So that we were able to find it there, in Vietnam, I thought that it was just really made me feel like Dallas was a little homey.
That's good.
Yeah.
And how long have you been in Dallas now?
It'll be 2 years this July.
2 years. Okay, good. In terms of Wingstop, you talked about Wingstop showing up in these moments. What does that mean to you, being a part of the organization? Like I said, at the end of the day, for us, it's about making sure folks are seen. We're meeting them where they are and educating. What does that mean, that the organization shows up in this way?
Intentional, makes me proud. We're a part of a lot of interview loops, right? So I don't have to go searching for examples about how we show up. And, again, shout out to Alyssa. We just had our AAPI celebration, I think last week or the week before, and she was very, inclusive and say, hey, there's things I don't know. If you guys have recommendations to different restaurants, different places. And we had a really diverse selection of food there, and the drinks and the music playlist, right? It's all around very, AAPI centric. So it does mean a lot.
Yeah, it's good. What would you tell, I always ask this question, what would you tell the younger you, the 3-year-old or the 4-year-old on?
That most of the things that you dream about and you think about doing, it actually happens. And some of those things happen sooner than you expected.
Yeah.
And that, the people in your life really matter at the end of the day, in terms of like remembering who you are, your goals, and who you surround yourself with is really important. Yeah,
that's great. And then for future you, you get in front of someone that's aspiring to be the next on. Is there advice that you give that person?
Yeah, I think it's the missed opportunities are not really missed. they just weren't meant for you.
That's a word. Say that, on.
And I think that it takes a certain level of maturity and past experience. I think that's something that we forget again and again. I think the disappointment of the moment really weighs on us.
Sure.
But then when the next things come through, it feels like all the pieces of the puzzles are together. And so I think that's the part of life, like the ups and downs. I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's good. Mm-hmm. Is there any, what's on your playlist right now? Music? Is there something that makes you think about home?
So we were trying to add some Vietnamese music to our playlist. Yeah. So my husband was in charge of the DJ playlist because that was his thing. I was more so in charge of the food. Yeah. And I realized I didn't know a lot of Vietnamese music. So the playlist that we had, our AAPI celebration, was actually a little bit more Asian centric than mine. So I'm here for any recommendations people might have.
Okay, you heard that. She's here for the recos. Send her your playlist. Yeah. Well, great. I appreciate the time. And is there anything that you want to share that we haven't talked about as it relates to AAPI Heritage Month and how people should think about it? Is there a book they should read? Is there a website they should go and search? Is there anything that you want to leave the viewers and listeners with as it relates to just what it means for this month? Yeah. The importance of this month.
I would say that for anybody, it really starts with the small things. Asking people how they pronounce their names. Yeah. Taking an opportunity to spell it right. I think it really shows up big because, I've been a part of celebrations or recognitions that was meant for me, and my name was said wrong or misspelled, and I think it took away a little bit of the magic for me. Yeah. And as you know, it's one syllable, 3 letters. Yeah. But happy
Bui. Bui, for those that are wondering, on Bui.
Yes. So it's really small things like that, right? And I always joke when I introduce myself, I'm like, hey, it's on, not Ann. Yeah. And try to get ahead of it. But those are really the small things in terms of seeing people recognizing them.
I think that's great. Yeah, I think that's amazing. And the sweetest thing a person can hear is their own name, and getting names right is really important. So I love that. I love that tip. Well, appreciate everybody tuning in for the latest episode of Say That, a Wingstop podcast. Go to wingstop.com, place your order, and make sure you go and take advantage of AAPI month. Grab a friend, grab a colleague, get educated. We'll see you next time. Peace.